Everyone is talking about the skills you need to use AI. Prompting, tool selection, automation, workflow design, those are real and worth learning. But I want to talk about a different set of skills. The ones that matter more as AI gets better, not less. The ones that aren't about using the tool, they're about being the person the tool can't replace. 9 skills, all of them human, all of them becoming more valuable in a world where AI is doing more of everything else. For anyone new here, quick intro. I'm Amy, 42, Sydney lawyer, building a suite of AI-powered YouTube channels, trying to exit my 9-to-5 by February 2027, documenting the whole thing in public. I have a channel called Renaissance because I believe AI will bring in a new renaissance for humanity. My voice isn't my real voice, Australian. Still looking. Skill 1. Knowing what question to ask. This is the most underrated skill in the entire AI conversation. Claude and every other LLM are extraordinarily good at answering questions. They are only as useful as the quality of the question you bring. And most people, when they sit down with AI, ask the first question that occurs to them, which is usually the surface question, not the real one. The more important question is almost always one level deeper. Not how do I write a better script, but what is this script actually trying to do, and is this the right format to do it? Not how do I get more views, but what does this channel exist for, and who does it exist for? The person who can identify the real question, the one underneath the obvious question, gets dramatically more from AI than the person who asks what first comes to mind. This is a skill you can develop deliberately. Before you ask Claude anything, stop and ask yourself, is this the real question, or is it the first question? The gap between those two is where most of the value lives. Skill 2. Judgment under uncertainty. AI is extraordinary at analysis, synthesis, and pattern recognition across large amounts of information. What it can't do is make the call when the information doesn't settle the question, when the data points in 2 directions and someone has to decide, when the right answer requires weighing things that can't be quantified, relationships, reputation, timing, what's true about the specific people involved in this specific situation. That call is still entirely human. And as AI handles more of the information work, the human judgment work, the part that requires actually being in the situation, with stakes, with accountability, becomes the thing that differentiates the people who are actually valuable from the people who are merely competent. Judgment isn't intuition. It's a skill that develops through being tested, through making decisions with real consequences and learning from what happens. AI can model consequences. It can't feel the weight of getting it wrong. And a lot of the wisdom that comes from judgment lives in that weight. Skill 3. Taste. Taste is the ability to know what good looks like in your specific domain, for your specific audience, given your specific purpose, before you can always produce it. It's what separates someone who can evaluate AI output from someone who just accepts whatever comes back. This matters more as AI gets more capable, not less. Because as the generation gets better, the bottleneck moves from can AI produce something to can you recognize whether what it produced is actually good. The person with taste is the person who can tell the difference between output that's technically competent and output that's actually excellent. That distinction is entirely human. Taste develops through immersion and comparison. You read widely, watch widely, experience widely, and you train your eye by constantly asking, what makes this work and what makes that not work? AI can accelerate the production. It can't develop your taste for you. Skill 4. Precise articulation. If you've used Claude seriously, you've already discovered this one. The quality of your output is directly proportional to the clarity of your input. Vague brief, vague output. Precise brief, precise output. This is a skill that AI is actively training us in because it punishes vagueness immediately and rewards precision immediately. But it's a fundamentally human skill. The ability to put into language what you actually want, what you actually mean, what the real constraint is. Most people, most of the time, operate on a level of implicit understanding that works fine in human communication and fails immediately in AI interaction. The people who get the most from AI are the people who can transmit clearly, who can describe a voice, a target, a problem, a decision, with enough specificity that something with no prior knowledge of their context can work from it. That skill translates everywhere, not just in AI sessions. Skill 5. Knowing when to trust the output and when to interrogate it. AI hallucinates. It produces confident, plausible-sounding output that is sometimes partially or completely wrong. And the wrongness isn't always obvious. It can be subtle, well integrated with the correct parts, and easy to miss unless you already know enough to catch it. The skill here is calibrated skepticism, not blanket distrust. That makes AI useless. Not uncritical acceptance. That makes AI dangerous. Calibrated skepticism means knowing which categories of output are high risk for errors and applying more scrutiny there, and which categories are low risk and can be accepted more readily. Legal citations, specific statistics, historical dates, quotes attributed to real people, high risk. Structural frameworks, brainstormed options, first draft prose, lower risk. The person who understands the error profile of AI and adjusts their verification behavior accordingly gets dramatically more reliable results than the person who either trusts everything or trusts nothing. Skill 6. The ability to be wrong in public and update. This one surprised me when I started thinking about it, but I think it's one of the most important skills for the AI era, and one of the rarest. AI learns from feedback. The best human collaborators with AI are the ones who can say, I was wrong about this. Here's what the evidence shows. Here's what I'm updating. Who can share their thinking in public, get something wrong, and correct it without it destroying their credibility, because they've built credibility on honesty rather than on being right. The creator who documents their build in real time with the real numbers, including the ones that don't look great, that person builds a different kind of trust than the person who only shares the success story. And in a world where AI is generating so much polished, confident, correct-sounding content, the person who is visibly honest about uncertainty and error stands out dramatically. I'm doing this. Multiple channels, $120, operating at a loss, and the audience for it is absolutely available. Skill 7. Human specificity. As AI gets better at generating content, text, images, video, code, analysis, the thing that becomes scarce is content that could only have come from a specific human, in a specific situation, with specific lived experience. The generic version of anything is being automated. The specific version, the one that carries your particular history, your particular way of seeing, your particular stake in the outcome, is becoming more valuable, not less. This is why build-in-public content performs. This is why the Sarah Kitchen story in a previous episode is more interesting than a paragraph about AI and employment. Specificity is the signal. It's the thing that tells the audience this couldn't have been generated. This came from someone who actually lived it. Developing this skill means being willing to be specific in public, to use the real name, the real number, the real conversation, the real fear. Most people smooth things out into the generic version. The people who resist that tendency are the ones whose content compounds. Skill 8. Managing your attention. AI makes it possible to produce more, consume more, and be stimulated by more than any human nervous system was designed to handle. The bottleneck is no longer production capacity. It's attention. The ability to choose where your attention goes, to say no to the infinite feed of AI-generated content and AI-assisted productivity and AI-enabled distraction, is becoming one of the most valuable and difficult skills in the economy. Because the people who can direct their attention deliberately, who can sit with a hard problem long enough to actually understand it, who can resist the pull of the next thing long enough to finish the current thing, Those people have an enormous advantage over the people who are maximally optimized for consumption. This is a practice, not a talent. It requires building the conditions that make focus possible, rituals, environments, constraints, and protecting them from the tools that are very good at eroding them. Skill 9. Accountability for outcomes. The last skill is the one that ties everything else together. AI can do an enormous amount of the work. It can research, synthesize, draft, plan, model, and generate. What it can't do is be accountable for the outcome. It doesn't have a reputation that's on the line. It doesn't have relationships that depend on the decision being right. It doesn't have a life that's affected by whether this works. You do. The person who can take the AI output, apply their judgment to it, make the call, and stand behind the result, that person is providing something the AI cannot. Not intelligence, not even necessarily better analysis. Accountability. The willingness to be the one who owns what happens next. In a world where AI is doing more and more of the work, the human who can say, "I take responsibility for this," is providing something increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. Because the alternative, hiding behind the tool, attributing the decision to the algorithm, diffusing accountability into the system, is the failure mode that produces the worst outcomes and the least trust. The 9 skills again, quickly. Knowing what question to ask. Judgment under genuine uncertainty. Taste. Precise articulation. Knowing when to trust and when to interrogate. Being wrong in public and updating. Human specificity. Managing your attention. Accountability for outcomes. None of these are AI skills. All of them are human skills. And all of them are becoming more valuable as AI gets better at everything else. The follow-up episode to this one is going to look at some of the most watched videos on this same topic, what the biggest creators in this space are saying the skills are, where I agree, where I'd push back, and what I think is being missed. I'll put it in the description when it's live. I'm Amy. This is Renaissance. Now go play.